Hello, and welcome into Full Screen Podcast. I'm your host, Kira Aster, and joining me today, as always, is my co host, skipping right past the 13 hours of Ryan Murphy's tribute to hear Austin Butler's 100% real, actual, totally authentic voice, is Raven Ebert. How are you, Raven?
I'm good. Happy 2023. I have Bailey's in my coffee right now in honor of Austin Butler. I just feel like that's something he would do. I don't think he's just Austin Butler now. He's like Austin Butler in quotes, like he's playing a character.
Yes.
And my request to Denis Villeneuve is that he keeps this accent in Dune. Everybody else speaks with like a standard American or English accent, and he shows up being like, "Hey there, pretty mama, what y'all doing on Arrakis?"
Hey, Kaya.
Oh my god.
It's working. Whatever he's doing is working. Good luck to Austin.
Yeah. Accents make you more interesting, right? We were just talking about how Ryan Gosling sounds different now than he did like 10 years ago. He's got an
Marlon
accent
Brando
that,
impersonator, Ryan Gosling.
yeah, it makes him more interesting. Everybody should do this. Like men, I know you can't do fashion phases or, TikTok aesthetics. Just put on accents and just try different personas. Like,
I'm
give it
here
a
for it.
whirl. It's so fun.
We just for some context, we are recording this a few days after the Golden Globes, which was run by the formerly racist Hollywood Foreign Press Association and is now run by possibly racist slash TBD
No. It's
HFPA.
totally fixed. It's all fine. They solved racism. It's all good.
I will say anyone who knows me will attest that my greatest love, other than Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi, is seeing drunk celebrities at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. So from that perspective, this award show was a huge win. But from all other perspectives, Raven, as you mentioned, rating, structure, live TV event, how this interacts with the theatrical and the streaming wars, a great, grand, spectacular failure because Nielsen released
Yeah.
their viewership data. Only 6 million people watch this. Sunday Night Football averages about 19 million in viewers, and Oscars last year averaged about 15 million. So, GG's.
They did? 15 million for the Oscars?
Oh, you know that.
When? Oh, okay. Okay, so yeah. So this goes with my theory that you need to make award shows contact sports, right?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
I would have loved to personally have seen Michelle Yeoh fight for her Golden Globe. She would have won regardless. Like
Queen.
she was a
Queen.
professional and a stunt woman and a performer in the Hong Kong film industries. Like she could take on, Michelle Williams. Like, come on. It would have been
Yeah.
nothing, but yeah, I would have liked to have seen a couple of fisticuffs, especially if everyone is drunk on a Tuesday, which good for you guys. The rest of us can't afford to do that, which is probably
Well, Mike
why it
Mike
was
White was
so
real close. He was like, "None of
at
you hired me."
smacking somebody. Oh yeah, he accused people of passing on his script, so he didn't want their applause. And to that, I say, Mike White, your petty game is strong. I applaud you. Congratulations. And I didn't even watch the show live, even though it was streaming, because I had to find higher ground because California is flooding, and I guess they had the Golden Globes in the only dry land on California. Good for them. Um,
Yeah.
that's low viewership, even though they had streaming, didn't they? They were simultaneously streaming it online.
But it was on network television. I just want to say, like, put it back on Twitter. You know, it was fine last year as just like a Twitter award
Yeah,
show. Like, just what are you doing? Anyway, before we dive into today's topic, Raven, why don't we recap the social media deets for our listeners in case they wanted to tell us about our next salty, snarky topic that we should cover?
absolutely. It is Moira Rose's favorite season awards. And so you can catch all of our coverage on both Twitter and Instagram at Full Screen Pod. We are also on the YouTubes, which is where I believe the next award show should just be live streamed. You can catch us there also at Full Screen Podcast. All of our episodes are uploaded there. Do leave us comments on our social media for feedback or future episode ideas. If you're feeling a little bit more old fashioned and miss the times when Steven Spielberg did not win Best Director awards, like the 90s, you can send us an email at fullyscreened@gmail.com. We'll probably delete it straight away, but we'll look at it longingly and miss those times where Steven Spielberg movies used to make money at the box office. So come say hi.
Happy for him. All right. On to today's topic. So it's recap time. We are doing an Industry Tech Roundup episode. So we're recapping the highs and lows, the hits and misses of streaming in 2022, which platforms kept us hopeful, which kept us entertained through their solid content slate, and which ones made us holler and scream and shout with their barbaric and ridiculous decisions and behind the scenes drama. We know which one. We are going to declare certain platforms winners and other ones losers, and discuss the business and product and tech aspects behind each. All right, let's go. Welcome into the all hands section. This is where today we'll be discussing what was good for streaming in 2022, which services ended up bubbling to the top and why. So let's discuss. The first one that we would like to declare as a winner is Hulu. So content highlights. Lots of great content from Hulu last year. So Fleischman is in Trouble, very recent show, Jesse Eisenberg, Claire Danes, Adam Brody, Lizzie Kaplan, based on the famous book by Taffy Ackner. The Bear, starring Golden Globe winner Jeremy Allen White, created by Chris Storer. Abbott Elementary, just an amazing show, Quinta Brunson Supremacy. What We Do in the Shadows, the elite vampire tale created by Taika Waititi and Jermaine Clement. Under the Banner of Heaven, is created by Dustin Lance Black, starring Andrew Garfield. Reservation Dogs, created by Sterling Harjo and Taika Waititi. Only Murders in the Building, Steve Martin, Martin Short, Selena Gomez, created by John Hoffman and Steve Martin. So, that was all in 2022. And then, of course, movies as well. Prey came out, part of the Predator franchise, created by Dan Trachtenberg, starring Amber Midthunder. So this was a sensation, which really made Hulu the talk of the town, I think, late summer. Then there was Fresh, starring Daisy Edgar Jones and Sebastian Stan, directed by Mimi Cave. So really continued the resurgence of just cannibal romance. Yellow Jackets, Bones and All, Dahmer. Apparently we love to eat people. And then Raven, you had a couple of shout outs to Hulu as well.
Absolutely. I really enjoyed the movie Fire Island. I think I'm a big fan of Joel Booster Kim now. He was on a very short-lived TV show on NBC with Carl Penn at one point. I think it was called Sunny Point or Sunnyside. Unfortunately, the show had such little impact. I've forgotten the name. But I'm really glad to see that more people are in charge of their own projects. Hulu seems to be really pushing that. I'm super also excited about the upcoming FX on Kindred, the Kindred TV show with the FX on Hulu. It's a work that I've been following since college. I've been reading Octavia Butler since then, so I'm really excited to see it done right. And there was another cute little show that I really loved on Hulu called Reboot, a Hulu original. It's the premise of Hulu rebooting one of those like Disney Channel or ABC Family kind of shows from the 2000s now, which is of course like an insanely meta thing to do. So it's a very meta show.
Let's move on to the business aspect. So, numbers wise, the subscribers as of Q4 2022 are around 47 million. So, it is under the leadership of Bob Iger, our Disney overlord, because it is Hulu is part of Disney, as we talked about in our Disney ads tier episode. So do check that out. But it does have its own independent leadership because it was an acquisition by Disney. So Joe Early is the head, and the head of content is Craig Erwich. And it is so it does bring more revenue than Disney Plus, which is key. So it brings in about $12.77 per subscriber as revenue, compared to Disney Plus's $6.32 per domestic subscriber. So that is a huge, huge win. So it's very profitable. It's a very precious baby for Disney. And then, as Raven mentioned, I think the partnerships for Hulu have been really strong. The FX on Hulu slate is very valued. There's a Showtime on Hulu, there's HBO on Hulu. In fact, my HBO Max subscription is through Hulu, and Stars on Hulu, and of course the third baby of Disney, ESPN Plus, is also on Hulu. So very strong slate. However, it's not internationally available. So much of the content outside of the US that is on Hulu is either absorbed into Disney Plus or absorbed into other services. They've licensed it to other services internationally. So interesting. Bottom line is that it understands its audience, its addition of live content, as well as, it has news and sports as well, has really emphasized that people come here to view what used to be prestige network TV, right? ABC, all that stuff, and they stay for the Hulu originals or FX on Hulu originals and that content. So really, really knows what it's doing, which brings me to like some UI and tech highlights. So I've mentioned this a couple of times before. This is my favorite UI of any streaming platform, and UI being user interface. I love the bright Futura font logo that's bright green on the gray blue screen. I love the incongruence of colors, green and blue hues, the patterns, the organization. It just all really works for me. Very exciting, very different, and keeps you engaged as a customer as you are browsing content on the app. I love the other couple highlights from the experience. Love the simple content curation. So it's organized on the top level by a master navigation, home TV, news, my stuff search, all that stuff. I love hubs where you can see curated hubs like Black Stories, AAPI Stories, Made by Her, Hulu Originals. I do have to say I'm very partial to the Netflix attention grabbing, creative new ways that they tag content, right? We're used to seeing explosive and cerebral and understated and campy and riveting. But Hulu is just very straightforward. They know what they're doing. Hulu is just labeling content as binge-worthy TV or lovable comedies. I also love their search. Their search is very organized. So if you search a phrase, it organizes that into sub navigation, right? Secondary navigation that appears. So if you search Sebastian Stan, things will be categorized under movies and episodes and top results. So that I really loved. It just offers further clarity to the customer as they're going around the experience. And I have to say, the work that they need is performance. It's just like absolutely lacking in performance in terms of like video playback. I find myself very frustrated if I skip ahead across devices and across experiences. I've seen this. If you skip ahead or if you fast forward or rewind, it just like kind of tends to spaz out and like skips 30 seconds ahead instead of 10 seconds, or just like plays the scene again. So there's something happening where they're just like tech infrastructure cannot handle that you deigned to actually see a scene again or skip ahead or something. So anyway, overall very good. Have to say, Thank God for no video previews as you hover. As you're like scrolling down, there's no video previews. Love it. 100% here for it. All right. So the next winner is Apple TV. Excuse me, Oscar-winning streaming service Apple TV Plus. So some content highlights: Ted Lasso, Jason Sudeikis' absolute marvel of a TV show, which really launched the service. And second shout out to Slow Horses, which I've really loved, based on the Slough House series by Mick Herron. Cannot say enough good things about this show. Gary Oldman in his absolute bag. Love this show. Then there's Severance, Dan Erickson and Ben Stiller's stunning show starring Adam Scott and another character named Upstate New York. And Bad Sisters, which I've really loved, which came out, I believe, late last year, which is Sharon Horgan is the creator and he leading the cast of this series. And movies,
I do want to point out that M. Night Shyamalan's Servant is also on Apple. It is all of the best of the Shyamalan-isms. It's also where I realize he's got the Rupert Grint connection. So the knock at the cabin door, I was like, that's kind of weird. Ron Weasley's in this, and then I realized, oh, he's in Servant, so he's got that M. Night hookup. So I also watched Dickinson. Very much enjoyed it.
yeah, great slate. Then let's move on to movies. Movies have been, well, Oscar winning service, right? Coda. But movies in 2022 also became really popular, I think, across, in the zeitgeist. So Cha Cha Real Smooth, starring Dakota Johnson, created by Boy Wonder, the up and coming director, creator Cooper Raiff. He was the Sundance darling at 2022 Sundance. Then there's Raymond and Ray, starring my darling Ewan McGregor, and also Ethan Hawke is there, created by Rodrigo Garcia. And we're just gonna skip right past Emancipation, so Godspeed to everyone involved. But I just found this out. So I've been waiting for this movie, Killers of the Flower Moon. Marty Scorsese's back, baby. I've been waiting for this movie. I've just been so excited that it's actually coming this year. So it's based on the David Gran book and stars Leonardo DiCaprio. So that will be on Apple TV.
It
Let's
better
move
be in
on.
cinemas too. I'm going to be upset if Apple doesn't do that because you gotta be able to stand and clap in the theater when Leonardo DiCaprio is playing across women his own age. Like, that's gotta be celebrated.
Yeah, Marty, we trust you. Moving on to the business aspect of Apple TV. So Apple TV's Plus is not here to really play the streaming game, right? They're here first and foremost for your data. If we had rights to the Westworld theme, we would play that right now. But their
I
strategy has
know.
been really, really strong strategy, right? Like Apple Card, Apple Watch, Apple Health, iPhone, all of the devices, AirPods. They've just across devices, across experiences, they just want to be part of everything that we are doing in our lives.
Yeah, they're like doing the Amazon thing, but better, like more carefully.
Absolutely. I think they've really leveraged the star power, right? There's all of their shows and all of their movies have really just like really big stars behind or in front of the camera. And for this, Zach Van Ambug and Jamie Ehrlicht, the heads of Apple Studios who came on board in 2017 from Sony Pictures, really take the credit. And they've really focused on genre and representation and really diversity in a very meaningful manner. And they have a small catalog right now, right, of originals, not a glut. And of course, it's Apple, so it is the comparison to Amazon Prime Video is absolutely just because they do offer themselves as a platform towards renting and buying and actually using Apple as a hub to get to your other subscriptions, right? whether it be Paramount or something else. In terms of numbers, they are at 25 million subscribers right now. Raven, you have some thoughts?
I do. I wanted to kind of bring up with what you were talking about with Hulu earlier. I felt like there is sort of a differentiator with live TV, and with Apple and obviously with Amazon, their differentiator is that you can pay money to see content made by other people. It's another gateway access. So, uh, that I think that's why there's just, you may not see as many subscribers, but you may see people using the platform because they're using it to watch something else, other people's content, and it doesn't matter because Apple's still getting a cut. Like they're getting a cut of that money. And so that's what's keeping them afloat. So I feel like these numbers, when
Yeah.
you account for people that, okay, maybe they may not be watching all these shows, but they're still having access to the platform. And I think that's unique because, you were talking about how they have around 25 million subscribers, and you would think that that means 25 million people, for example, are watching Ted Lasso. It's fine if they're not, according to Apple, because they're still making money. And that's a
Yeah.
problem that these other streaming services can't afford to have. So,
Purely streaming. Yeah, a very
mhm.
good point. And this is why they were able to keep their prices pretty low. I mean, they're still pretty low. It was 4.99 up until I believe December a month ago. Now they have raised it to about 6.99 per month. Still very low compared to like some other services. So yeah, they seem to be doing well. UI wise, user experience wise, I absolutely love the look of this app. It's just crisp, clear, clean, functional, focuses your eye on the very select content that it has. The level of immersion inherent in its organization is so trademark Apple, right? They understand how to create something beautiful and appealing and something that works. It's in their
Mhm.
nature, and it's just absolutely uniquely organized too. So A plus on everything, no notes. Some other highlights, I think the little like visual quality is such like so high resolution wallpaper, dreamy quality, very soothing to me. And like when you
Mhm.
scroll, it is interspersed with full screen takeover of the promoted shows, the shows they are promoting. But I love that as you hover on the show, there's, I believe, audio less. The picture starts moving. There's a preview, so it's a moving interactive sort of preview of this promoted content, but there's smaller tiles on this moving picture and static text on this, so it gives it like a very 3D feel. And I love that. I thought that was so unique and so thoughtful, and I really loved that experience as you're sort of browsing around the app. I've stumbled upon this 24-hour Apple Music television, which, what is this? What is the point of
Oh,
this?
it is
I just like
to soothe the anxiety of people who don't want to be alone with their thoughts, so they just have ambient noise or brown sounds or things like that.
discovery into music, this new artist from all over the world. It's very, we'll get to Shudder, but it's very Shudder live television, sort of 24-hour streaming. Other call outs,
Mhm.
it's minimal personalization right now, which they can get away with because they don't have a heavy originals catalog. The search is so lovely. I think my favorite search, very much like Hulu, where they subcategorize into categories as you are searching a phrase, but it's the organization is in terms of carousels instead of actual like sub navigations. So top results, movies, cast, crew appears as a carousel under the search, and you can sort of keep going from left to right into these carousels. Very impressive. And I also
They've
love the
been
in
killing the UI game for like 2
for
decades now. I'm not
they know what
surprised
they're doing.
that, yeah, they're hiring people from not just like people who learn, human machine interactions and things like that, but they're people who are working from like backgrounds in design from like Parsons and Cal Academy of Art. So they're hiring artists as well as designers. So they're not just thinking about functionality, they're thinking about aesthetic.
I also love the video playback. I love what stood out to me is when you're fast forwarding or rewinding or pausing. It's very thoughtful because when you fast forward, there's a visual cue for confirmation that you have skipped ahead 10 seconds, but it does not stop the video. It keeps going. So it reduces the extra effort, extra click for you to actually hit play again. So loved that. Just little things that matter. All right, so the next one we are declaring the winner of 2022 is the Roku channel. So we covered this in depth already in our Roku channel episode where we give our praise and love to the Weird Al movie. So do check that out for an in-depth summary of the platform, history, UI analysis, tech discussion, everything. TLDR, I think they've just been doing so well with like investing in originals and becoming they have no right to become part of the talk of the town, but through their investment in content and Evan Rachel Wood and Daniel Radcliffe and all these stars that appeared in Weird the Al Yankovic stories, the proper title of the movie, they've really become the top fast service, right? The fast standing for free ad supported television. Tubi, Pluto TV, Crackle, among those is really rising up as having some sort of prestige. And David Eilenberg, Colin Davis, and Brian Tenenbaum are really behind the head of original content, head of scripted originals, head of alternative originals, which I assume is unscripted. So they're really putting a lot of thought and heads behind the content itself. And love that for them. And we covered UI as well in detail. It could use a lot of work, performance could use a lot of work, but I'm glad to see that they are actually focusing on content before actually focusing on the building or the construction around the
Mm-hmm.
content.
Yeah, that'll come with more money as more subscribers roll in. And I would say that you get so much bang for your buck on Roku. It is like a really good starter service for people out there. I would say, like, you've graduated college, you're paying your own bills for the first time. Roku is a good thing to get into because there's a ton of stuff and it doesn't cost a lot of money. And you can watch things that are, of course, licensed there for free with ads and stuff. So if you are looking to make your meals or do your laundry and have something playing. It does support playback on both mobile and desktop, as well as obviously all the other applications through living room devices and stuff. So they've made the right initial tech investments. I think they're just going to work on like that extra little spicy, salty, the performance side, the playback controls, and having a smoother experience overall once they get the money from more subscribers.
Yeah, absolutely. And advertisers, right? Like the ads are the moneymakers right
Mm-hmm.
now. Speaking of investments too, they bought Quibi, which we also have an in-depth episode on. So do definitely check out our retro on Quibi's spectacular failure. But they Roku bought Quibi, and all of the original content and all of their slate is now under Roku as well. So we are hopeful that we'll see an upward trajectory in and more hiring of designers, engineers, and proper product thinking as well. So, all right. So the next winner we'd like to declare is Shudder, our
No
beloved.
bias. No bias here. What do you mean we're both suckers for horror and we would put this regardless? Absolutely not. This is a numbers based, very fair, very objective review. Shut
Yes.
up.
Yes, we are both huge horror fans. In fact, we have also an episode where we go in depth into horror. Mike Flanagan, we talk about the experiences of Shudder and Screambox as horror platforms and streaming services. So definitely do check that out. But in summary, I think Shudder has been just killing the game of realizing that horror is actually prestige storytelling and have investing in getting content classics like Evil Dead and Candyman and Wailing, but also creating originals that have become really popular, like the VHS franchise, Host, Mortuary Collection, and so many more. It has kept its prices low as well, about $5.99 a month. Its identity in terms of sort of like when you go on the app and its experience is very, very strong identity. The audio, the logo, the colors, it is sleek and responsive, and just you they know what they're doing. I mean, they're also owned by
It's
AMC, so
fun.
they're
I think they understand that horror ultimately is cathartic. It's like a fun experience. You're not supposed to want to live in the universe of any of these characters unless you are, of course, deranged. Watch out for. I do want to warn Kira that Ghostface is coming to New York City, so please stay safe. He's on the subway. I'm saying he as if I don't know what's up, but yeah, I think it's just the success of Mathregan or Megan, my girl, my babe, my darling, my boo. She's had success in January as a horror movie, so I think it's proof that horror has the staying power kind of throughout the year. So it's not a surprise that horror is the genre that gets its like own streaming service. So I'm really
yeah.
glad that they're catering to us. I think you even talked about the Boulet brothers, Dragula, which is like the fun side of horror.
Yes.
I love that Shudder encapsulates all of that into the UI. You're just like, I'm about to have a good time as I go into the service, you know?
Yes, they are made for diehard fans like us, but also they have the 24-hour horror movies channel, Shudder TV, which is like a genius way to get you in to discover content that might appeal to you. Very low stakes, right? Just kind of reducing the effort on your side. And then they do tag content in a very, very thoughtful and fun way as well. You'll see as you're scrolling the app, you'll see Zombie Jamboree, Vengeance is Hers, Full Moon Fever. These are lovers of storytelling, and they absolutely understand what's happening. And just the whole experience of like search is very functional, very strong. Video playback is good. One of my favorite features is like you rate content with skulls.
I know. That's
In
cute.
It's lovely. So they are delivering. They're straightforward, and with horror becoming such a big thing in 2022, Shudder was really became very popular, and actually became profitable, I believe, in 2021 as well. So it's popular, and we're here to
I,
support it.
I think Steven Spielberg should remake Fablemans, but this time it's like a kid discovering this love for movies while watching Shudder. Do it, Steven.
Oh my gosh, I would love that. I would love that. And maybe this time Michelle Williams actually fits into the whole universe. For more of my thoughts, check it out on Letterboxd about the Fablemans.
Hmm.
Um, I do want to say I think work could be done in partnering with Titans, right? So they should really get exclusives into Blumhouse, Jason Blum, get exclusive. Like Megan should have been a Shudder release. Maybe when it comes to streaming, maybe it comes to Shudder and nowhere else, And
Yeah.
then partnering with Mike Flanagan because Netflix did Mike dirty last year.
Yeah,
Um,
Mike's gone to Amazon, but I think, yeah, we should definitely bring up Mr. James Wan, a huge presence in horror, and I think that he could do a lot with what Shudder, the freedom I imagine Shudder would give him.
the last winner on our list is Paramount Plus. So, content highlights. So, they have NFL on CBS, guys. Yeah, undeniable power of sports, draws a lot of eyeballs. So, they're doing well. They have Evil, one of my favorite shows. It's just like a batshit horror show starring Mike Coulter, Katya Herbers, Asif Mandvi, created by Robert King and Michelle King. They have the Star Trek property, so they've created Lower Decks, which is quite popular, and they also have Picard, which is fine, not so popular.
I I love that paradigm. We have NFL and Star Trek, the duality of man.
Really. And they have Taylor Sheridan somewhere. The Taylor Sheridan universe with Yellowstone, with 1923, with 1883, with Mayor of Kingstown, and the new Tulsa King with Sylvester Stallone. Yeah, Taylor Sheridan is not sleeping. He's just churning out content. Other content highlights, so RuPaul's Drag Race, right? 7 seasons strong, is on Paramount.
Yes,
And they
auntie. Right.
the joy. And they also have Halo, the adaptation of the video game, which is like becoming a hot new thing to do because there is hope in video
Mm-hmm.
game to TV or movie translation again.
Again, the duality of men, RuPaul's Drag Race and then Halo.
So movies, of course, Paramount Plus is of course part of and Paramount Pictures, right? So huge movie slate, huge movies year for them last year. So Top Gun Maverick, ever heard of it? $1 billion. It was the first movie that really made us go last year, like, theaters, huh? They're coming back. They also had The Lost City, which was a really fun movie with Daniel Radcliffe, Sandy Bullock, Channing Tatum, created by Aaron and Adam Nee. They also have Devotion, which just came out, starring Jonathan Majors and Glenn Powell, which the handsomeness is just going to be too distracting for me to watch.
Is Paramount Plus just an excuse to watch Glenn Powell flying planes in like different decades, basically? It's like,
it's testing well with the audience. It has a high cinema score. You know what?
Yeah.
He
Disney,
knows.
I'm sorry, this should have been the man you picked for Han Solo. He's clearly excellent at being a pilot. Like,
oh man, don't give me hope. Don't give me hope.
But what else can we see besides Glenn Powell in a cockpit?
Let's pause here to talk about that. No. So it also has Scream. So Scream is back as well. So performed really well early in the year. So Scream is on Paramount, and then Smile, another horror movie, which I really enjoyed, created by Parker Finn and starring one of the Nepo babies, Sosie Bacon. Now let's get to the business aspect. So this service actually launched as CBS All Access in 2014 and was rebranded in 2021. And it, like Disney Plus, is organized of the different brands that come under the umbrella of Paramount. So Comedy Central, CBS, Nickelodeon, MTV, BET. So these are very valued properties, right? And they're up front and center in when you go on Paramount Plus. And the co-presidents and chief content officers, the duo of Brian Robbins and Chris McCarthy, are really responsible for the brilliant strategies of focusing in on getting the exclusivity to the movies and really getting people to sign up for Paramount Plus. And of course, Paramount Pictures' back catalog is really, really strong because of the reliable legacy of Paramount Pictures. In terms of numbers, it has about 43 million subscribers. It's pretty high. And
I also wanted to mention, because you brought up all the television properties, that it'll be interesting to say compare and contrast it with Hulu, which also has the whole live TV aspect of it, given that, the CBS sitcoms that are in-house productions also end up on Paramount Plus. So some interesting choices coming out with Paramount Plus. They're really like digging in now, trying to say we're going to establish ourselves as a real competitor. Not for Netflix necessarily. I feel like that was the mistake everyone makes, is like going for Netflix in particular. No, I think they're trying to treat the streaming market as like independent of what Netflix does, and Paramount Plus has been like the first indicator on that. So that's cool. I think that's a winning point for me.
Hold that thought about independence from Netflix, because we'll get to the UI. But I did want to mention, so 43 million subscribers, and the cost for the ads tier, which I'm actually using the ads tier, so it's $4.99, and then the premium tier, the ads free tier, is $9.99. So pretty average pricing. The idiotic move that they've done from a business perspective is Yellowstone is now available on Peacock. What? Which I know I won't say anything about that because Raven, you'll go into that later, but this was a shocker. I just couldn't understand this. All right, so the UI and tech piece. So this is where I want to focus in on. So honestly, like nothing groundbreaking. I do like how it's organized. I love the logo of Paramount, the bright blue logo with a little shadow that makes it seem very 3D, very tangible. There's no endless scroll in Paramount's app, which I really appreciate. It's very consistent. Seems sort of part Disney Plus with the right, like dividing its properties into Nickelodeon umbrella, into BET umbrella, but everything else is very Netflix. So the left rail navigation, right? Most of the
Oh.
apps, other than Netflix, we see the top navigation, the master navigation is on the top, but on Netflix, of course, is on the left side. And that's what Paramount follows. And then it also has the overall journey very reminiscent of Netflix. So, by which I mean, so as you're scrolling through the experience, right, going from carousel to carousel, the top spot where you see the promoted content is reserved for whatever content and tile you have selected. So that means the top of the screen remains static as the bottom of the screen scrolls, which
Oh.
means whatever. They probably thought it works for Netflix, but it means it's like it's putting a lot of the content below the fold and asking you to scroll to see more of its content instead of presenting it to you up front and center. So it's asking you to do work to discover content. And what
Hmm.
Netflix does here, which we can debate if it's better or not, it just like crowds you with content in that space that it has. It just has like millions of properties in the bottom of the screen. Just like it's very crowded, very noisy. Paramount does treat you with a lot more respect. The space is very meaningfully used, doesn't just like overwhelm you with content. In a way, it's lovely, thoughtful user experience. In another way, it's a missed opportunity. Like, why am I seeing more trending content below the fold? Why am I scrolling?
Does it have as much content as Netflix? So it's like, oh, we don't want you to get into choice paralysis because people feel frustrated that they're spending 10 minutes deciding what to watch. Does Paramount Plus have that kind of content?
Because of their back catalog of movies, yes, they do. Not as many originals as, of course, Netflix, but they are off. They do have a lot of content. So,
Yeah, they've been a movie
it,
studio for like 100 years, I imagine. So,
yeah, yeah, so I would say I think that stood out to me. I've long pointed to Paramount Plus's ads experience as one of the experiences that I really love. The clear breakpoints, the clear visual cues of when an ad is starting, when it's ending. The insertion of ads doesn't interrupt a scene that you're watching, and you cannot skip ads, which, are you listening, Disney Plus? So that's
I think
actually
that's
there.
interesting. Yeah, that I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure Disney Plus is going to start like poaching people from Paramount Plus's ads management and ads
that would
revenue
be
folks.
that would be so funny. And then I would say I would leave this with search. I was not impressed. It's very very basic. Honestly, it reminded of me of the Roku channel. You search for something and it's just like bleh. It's just like they just spit out something that's not organized, so it could be anything. It does seem like you can only search titles and not cast, crew, or anything else. So it's maybe that's why they didn't put effort into organizing it. But I would just like to say put some resources on just improving your overall experience, Paramount. We are declaring you a winner. Do not disappoint us.
Well, depending on your mood and your personal taste levels, this is either the less delightful or the much more delightful part of the discussion. This is the missed objectives and key results, where we will be looking into the misses of streaming in 2022. I am going to get into some real delicious, juicy negativity, starting with my personal frenemy of the year, HBO Max. They betrayed me. They let me down. They broke their promise, and I don't care anymore. To quote, you know, one of
Remind
the
us of the name that's responsible for all of this. Don't think it was ever mentioned in our previous podcasts.
David Zaslav. I'm coming for you. I don't know where you live. I imagine it's a very expensive house, but I am going to be watching a lot of The Menu and Glass Onion and Triangle of Sadness to get over my feelings for you. So the entire fallout from the whole Warner Brothers and Discovery merger was so massive. I mean, to be fair, they had the most to lose because they kind of won big in some ways in 2021. They gained a lot of subscribers, and a lot of people were genuinely excited about what HBO Max had to offer, which of course means that they fumbled the bag immediately. And I'm sure more is coming now that we're actually getting confirmation of the HBO Max and Discovery Plus services to be merged into one. So I'm sure there's going to be even more fallout. The studio Warner Brothers, of course, fumbled the bag again with pissing off a ton of the creatives that they worked with during the 2020 and 2021 phases with the release and distribution of a lot of movies. They pissed off Denis Villeneuve, obviously, with the Dune thing, and they cut ties completely with Christopher Nolan because he was so unhappy with the way that they handled Tenet. So they're going to be losing out big on all that Oppenheimer money. But that's okay because Warner Brothers have already made enough bombs. Let's not give them the power to make an atomic bomb. I think that the main problem that's going to happen, which we also kind of covered within our HBO Max episode, please check that out, is that the prestige of the HBO content is going to get heavily diluted with and I'm pardon my French, the flood of crap that's going to come in from Discovery Plus. Because, if HBO decides to branch off and say, hey, let's go back to having an HBO Go or HBO Now model, people like you and me, and I can say this with a lot of confidence, we will go there. We will not stay subscribed to Max because I don't think the originals have had that much potency. I think there's been a couple of really good ones. Of course, Hacks and The Flight Attendant are the ones that get the most critical acclaim and attention. But they're also the ones that stand out the most because there's been a bunch of terrible duds as well. I truly hated all those reboots of like the teen TV of the 2000s. It's not working out. Hate Gossip Girl. Hate that new Pretty Little Liars one. Did not like that. I just feel like the main draw is the HBO stuff. So David Zaslav's focus is making cheap, long-running television. None of that jives with the HBO of it all. So I feel like we're going to get compromised.
We should say profitable too, right? Like, yes, easy, cheap, awful, not good quality, but makes money.
Yeah, because you can make something good and cheap, but that means you're going to have to give it some time, and that is also not profitable. I think the common theme that we're seeing with any streaming service that isn't Netflix is technical stuff. Their playback sucks. They are famously hated on social media. They're one of the most prominent ambassadors of bad user experience. So I don't know if any money is going to be invested in fixing that. So I'm just admiring the audacity of what they did this year, which is remove a bunch of content for like these short-term costs and saying, suck it up, bitches, we're upping the price. And that's what they did. They upped the price. It's one of the most expensive streaming services now, and I don't think they're going to be able to justify the cost for much longer.
I need to take a deep breath here because when I read the story, I believe I texted you that I don't mean to be mean when I say, are they actually stupid? I just don't understand what's happening. Like, to your point, the performance of the app sucks. Like, as much as we love this brand, the content on this brand, for the most part, the performance has, I think it's my least favorite experience. It might be my least favorite.
No, because it crashes constantly. So what if I'm rewatching Batman for the fifth time and I know exactly what's about to happen next? I don't need to see server error encountered. I don't want to see that. This shouldn't be happening on a service where you're about to pay like $16 a month for. Like this is the service I would recommend to do Netflix style, guys. Like, get your Hive
Yeah.
Pod, your Polycule, your roommates, your community members. Like, just start this up. Pretty soon, they're going to also start, implementing those restrictions in a couple of years. But I think they're just so focused on being profitable. They want to see that subscriber money coming in. Split this, guys. This is our recommendation because HBO content is still great. I love that I can go
Yes.
back and watch The Sopranos. I love that I can see young Michael Imperioli in The Sopranos and current Michael Imperioli in White Lotus season 2. That's great. But as for the rest of it, it's just whelming. So
I do one thing I do want to say, like, again, just going back to the UI point, it'll be interesting to see how they, okay, they acquire customers. Yeah, people are there on this like new price tier on this new service, which I think is going to be called Max. Are they going to be able to retain these customers? Because that's how revenue comes in, because the experience is not meant for you to stay there and discover content. The journey is excruciating. They just thoughtless, I would say, is the word that comes to mind. I just don't get it.
I am upset with this streaming service in particular. I've brought this point up before. I think now that Paramount Plus is coming out, that might change, but this is also one of the few streaming services that has older movies. I'm really happy to see that. They have a great back catalog of Warner Brothers, so I want to see international movies as well. I want to see like a place for preservation, and they're making the case of like, I don't know, taking things off the streaming service, so you have to go buy this shit as they put it back into the Warner Brothers vault. Speaking of evil vaults run by men who have lost their mind in the pursuit of financial success, let's talk about Disney and Disney Plus. I am sorry to hand it to you as one of the big losers of 2022. Now, let's come in with the caveat that we know Disney Plus has got more subscribers than Netflix today, which is a big win, given that the benchmark of success is Netflix. But if you dig into the numbers,
The Disney Plus umbrella,
yeah,
right? Which I think you're gonna go.
exactly. It's the
Yeah.
Disney Plus umbrella that has more users than Netflix worldwide, because we're talking about the combined number of Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN subscribers. So the actual people on Disney Plus still doesn't cross that line. So, and let's go into why. So they have a identity crisis when it comes to content, because they're focused on their big brand acquisitions of Pixar, Marvel, and Star Wars. But to me, those are theatrical premises. People want to go have shared experience watching a Star Wars movie or a Marvel movie, and having it on streaming isn't necessarily gaining the same level of not just interest within the critical and commercial spheres, but also the profit level wise. They're not seeing the same returns that they would on like the Avengers movies, where you actually see all the heroes team up. I think that's just not cut out for that. I also know that they're going to be reevaluating their profitability now that they have the new ad supported tier. So we'll see how that's working out. But because Disney is again so brand focused, it's like we put Hulu on the list of winners because they're very focused on what they're creating, and that doesn't fold into the Disney side at all in the United States, but it's part of Disney Plus elsewhere. So, figure your shit out. This is a little too complicated. I feel like they could be seriously reconsidering their relationship with Hulu down the road, because it's just an extra expense having, a separate streaming service. But we'll see how strong brand integrity is. I know Bob Iger is very much about like keeping Disney that wholesome family brand. So I have a feeling that it's going to be kept separate, but it's going to cost them a lot of money. There's just a lot to muddy through here. I'm just going to say that an interesting fact you told me, Kira, was that you saw like a best and worst of 2022 list where the best movie was Pinocchio by Guillermo del Toro, and the worst movie was Pinocchio by Disney.
Same
Same
year.
year. If Walt, I mean Walt Disney could hear this fact, he would tear himself apart. Like the idea of the joy of animation completely robbed by these like stale, frigid live action remakes is just, that's what we're going after. I also didn't hear good things about Book of Boba Fett. I heard very good things about the Andor TV show. So I'm glad to see that
Brilliant.
there is some creative risk being taken, but to me that Boba Fett TV show was really like, oh yeah, this is Star Wars made by Disney.
I have very strong feelings about Book of Boba Fett, which I'm not going to get into here. We're going to actually do a dedicated episode about Star Wars and road mapping exercise basically.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Book of Boba Fett felt like it just lost the plot in the middle. And that's when they brought in the big guns. The Mandalorian was brought in, and it's actually Book of
Yeah.
Boba Fett among fans is labeled as Mandalorian season 2.5.
Yeah, and I think
So
that like that's the problem with Disney is that they just have to keep reminding you of successful things in the middle of other things because you lose interest. Like they're just unable to figure out what lands and what sticks with their audiences because they're just so desperate to recapture their massive financial investments. So I am declaring Disney Plus one of the misses of 2022 because of that, because it failed to make an impact with all this money and they've lost $1.5 billion. That's like the GDP of small nations they have lost in streaming because they're just not sure what their approach is. I think that they need to take some serious time to reconsider what they're doing. Please don't fuck up Mandalorian season 3 or I'm not emotionally equipped to handle.
I won't even hear it. No, don't even say that sentence. Don't even put it
I'm
out
not
there.
emotionally equipped to handle Kira's breakdown is what I'm going to say. I'm just, please don't do this to her, do it to me. I don't care.
I just want to say, if you touch a hair on my beloved Grogu's head, I'm
Oh
coming.
my
I'm
god,
coming for you, Disney.
take a few deep breaths, drink some blue milk. Next up, we have, Jeffrey Bezos. Jeffrey Bezos. Jeffrey Bezos. Yay! You didn't do it. You gave us nothing. Go girl, give us nothing energy because I am declaring with a heavy heart Amazon Prime as a miss. Now, I wouldn't call them a big ol' loser because this isn't high school, but they do project a little bit of a loser energy, and let's go into why. So, at the very beginning of the year, and at the very beginning of this podcast, I might add, I was really excited to see where Amazon was going with all of the IP acquisitions that they had made. And these were big investments, expensive investments, especially in like these gorgeous fantasy realms, very much catered towards picking up the audience that we thought HBO left behind with Game of Thrones.
Built-in audience just there for the taking.
With Lord of the Rings and the Wheel of Time. And I expected to see more of a cultural impact after the release of those items and a critical impact as well, especially when it comes to Lord of the Rings. Like our expectations are sky high. People who don't have anything to do with fantasy for the rest of the year will make time.
I will say I will say it had, and we discussed this in our first episode, in our hype episode about Rings of Power and the
Mm-hmm.
in-depth analysis of the UI of Amazon Prime and the history and everything. I will say they came at a disadvantage with like the trolling, right? Like about the diverse casting and Rings of Power already being like just tanked and having a
Mm-hmm.
negative sort of reaction in culture before it even released. And that was just very, broke my heart to see that. And it never quite
Yeah.
recovered, you know?
I think that's going to happen regardless. It happened with the Obi-Wan show on Disney Plus, and it happened with House of the Dragon and HBO. And HBO instead gave absolutely no oxygen to those people because they say, oh, you have a problem with race blind casting or you have a problem with specifically diverse casting. Guess what? We're throwing uncle niece incest at you. How's about that? And Amazon, I think, gave some oxygen to that and actually tried to counter it by appealing to the better angels of their nature. And I think that's a fundamental mistake because reactionaries don't have that. They're specifically in this to grift their way and get money out of the outrage of people who feel insecure about representation in fantasy. So that to
Holding the
me was the
reviews on
biggest.
IMDb. Yeah, they definitely gave it a lot of, they just didn't, they were not prepared for an IP this big. They didn't handle it right. And I just, their reaction, their handling, their management of the whole thing really kind of ruined like, I mean, we love Lord of the Rings universe. We are such huge fans, and this show is going to keep us excited for whatever 5 seasons.
Mm-hmm. I just
Yeah,
expect a little bit more from Amazon Prime. I think that
yeah.
they could do more around the presentation of the streaming service. I do want to give credit where credit is due and say that a much due UI refresh was provided, which is great, but I would of course like to see more consistent advertising, better branding. I get a lot of content around other streaming services within my social media as promoted content on Instagram, especially on YouTube. I'm sure TikTok as well. I don't use TikTok, but you know, the impact that you have, for example, the 20 seconds of Jenna Ortega dancing in Wednesday on Netflix, there is no comparable social media phenomenon that you see with Amazon Prime. The Boys is a really good example of using the writers to be able to cash in on the, I would say, dystopian current timeline. I know that the social media people for the VOT, quote unquote, VOT media on Twitter and Instagram, especially on Twitter, had a really field day when Elon Musk bought Twitter. So that's the kind of branding and things that I want to see with Amazon Prime for the rest of their content. Because if you ask Joe Schmo on the street about what they enjoy watching on Amazon Prime, it's not going to be a Prime original. So I really expect more. They have a billionaire backing them. Stop going to space and spend more money promoting The Expanse on Prime. Like, can you please do that? Just don't go to space. Talk about your space shows. I'm really like upset that they don't want to like put in more promotion over there. Oh, they did get the NFL rights to do Thursday night football on Prime, so I'm hoping that that brings them more money, of course, and that would mean better investment in UI. So we shall see about that. But come on, Jeffrey, you can do it. So there is Amazon, one of my misses for 2022, and another one is the stupidest name for a streaming service, Peacock. All I think about is Kenneth the Page from 30 Rock. Kenneth Parcell just, I don't want to do nothing that disgraces the Peacock. And then Pete Hornberger says you're about like 30 years too late or something like that. But yeah, I'm sorry, I just can't get 30 Rock out of my mind. So when I see Peacock failing, I'm like, Jack Donaghy predicted this, right? Because the cost does not justify, watching The Office on repeat. But there's also, it just doesn't feel like a fully fleshed out
Yeah. No.
streaming service. Like there's no access to full seasons for free accounts. So I get that they're trying to push people for that, but it's like at least give them the option to watch it with ads. But there's also no mobile downloads, which what are you doing? I guess you're trying to keep like David Lynch happy, who doesn't want you watching stuff on your fucking telephone. But
That's a lot,
I
yeah.
have access to Hulu, which is where I get to watch my beloved 30 Rock, of course. But also there's Parks and Rec and ER and a bunch of other NBC stuff. So you don't need access to Peacock to watch NBC shows.
Which is a huge mistake. What are they doing? They're not even leaning into the exclusivity.
No,
Why would I go to Peacock?
I don't know why. I can see Friends on HBO Max. I can see Seinfeld on Netflix. What is I don't understand what the differentiator is. This to me seems like the excuse for Universal, which is of course bought by Comcast. Comcast owns Universal as well as NBC. So to me, it seems like, oh, this is the place to go watch all Fast and Furious movies in order, Lord of the Rings style. You want to celebrate a Fast and Furious Christmas, get yourself a Peacock account or something. But they are very much reliant on Universal to be able to bring them in. Like, the bumps that Peacock saw within their subscriber numbers were around the releases of the Halloween franchise. So with Halloween Ends and with Nope, both of which were not made necessarily for streaming. They're theatrical experiences. And, I think you keep reminding people that you get Peacock with Comcast. Comcast is one of the most hated corporations in America. I truly believe that if we want to make real meaningful steps in preventing monopolies and going back to like the way corporations were broken up 100 years ago in America, we start with Comcast. Because there is no person in these blessed United States that doesn't hate Comcast. People can find good things to say about like Amazon or Apple. It's like, yeah, I know they let their workers pee in bottles and not take worker
But
breaks.
2-day shipping, same day
Right,
delivery.
right. There is no but for Comcast. It's just the devil. It is just Satan. It is just Shaitan. There is nothing like redeeming about them. And I don't have any idea of what kind of content is there on Peacock as an original. Now you told me about Yellowstone, which I'm going to take your
How is it
word
on
as a
Peacock?
I'm going to take your word that that is a real TV show. Grizzly men with grizzly bears. I guess that's a genre now. I have no idea of the other cultural cachet that Peacock has. Like other than
They
literally
had
Kenneth Parcell making like a macrame peacock bikini for his grandma. It's just 30 Rock references in my head. I have no idea what Peacock original content
there's no.
is. It's
Yeah.
not been promoted. I've not seen anyone become a star either. I mean, you have Peacock. You
There's
should tell
there
me more about it.
I have not. Well, this is probably the app that I spend the least time on, but they did have Girls Five Eva, which was enjoyable. I did not finish it. Tina Fey was attached to that show. This is why I started it. And then they had a British show, We Are Body Parts, which was very interesting. Again, I did not finish again because there was no one around me to engage with, and there was no like social media trend. Like didn't have wasn't part of the zeitgeist, and I felt very left out and wasn't engaged at all. And one thing to watch out for is that this month, actually later this month in January, we have Ryan Johnson's Poker Face coming, starring Natasha Lyonne. So we will see how that goes. Seems to be, well, we don't know what really it's about. She's a detective and or sort of a detective, can tell when people are lying. We'll see how that performs.
Oh, it is
But maybe
it is
there's hope.
not a Lady Gaga biopic? Oops, I'm checking out. Unless Natasha Lyonne is doing a ridiculous accent, and by which I mean she's speaking with her own accent, I'm not watching this. But I don't see promotion for it. I had no idea that this was coming out. So Peacock, you're doing a bad job promoting yourself as a network beyond just that's the place you go to watch Office because you haven't moved on from 2009. All right, motherfuckers, take your heart pills and get hydrated because we're about to enter like the really fucking bitter section. I'm angry, I'm mad, I'm fucking confused by my rage. We're talking about the biggest loser here of 2022, Netflix. Read, you let me down. You let me
Let's
down.
go.
And when I die and you come to bury me, I want you to be my pallbearer so you can let me down one more time. Read. It's been incredibly frustrating, and I can see why it may be confusing because it's still making relevant stuff, like culturally relevant content, and it's winning awards. But I feel like that's just a statistical probability because they're putting out so much shit that they are bound to maybe have a few good ones, but the amount of shit that they're putting out, I can see how it's going to keep diluting the good stuff that they're having. So they let's talk about what I fucking hated through this year. Number one, they seem to be cutting ties with creators that have been making them successful, critically acclaimed content. So they gutted Netflix animation earlier in 2022. They cut ties with Mike Flanagan, who I think is taking his toys to Amazon. I'm hoping that means good things for them. Amazon doesn't really seem to have a presence within horror. I think this could be a good opportunity for them to invest in that. Rooting for you. Congrats to Netflix for once again pissing off Brian Konietzko and Michael DiMartino, the creators of Avatar, coming in to do what M. Night Shyamalan and Nickelodeon Pictures did like 10 years ago. Live action
I had
Avatar
to.
series. We all had high hopes. I don't anymore.
Yeah, I had to when this news came out that the creators had left because their vision was not being honored at Netflix. I had to run laps around the house, around the block because I just could not just.
Yeah. They're bleeding subscribers. We understand that, but that is of course because they don't seem to have that content coherence anymore. They're just making the broadest of all content. They are trying to make something that fits everybody's taste levels and then ends up pleasing nobody because what they come up with is like bland and undercooked. And sorry guys, I just watched the menu, so a lot of like cooking references. But it really feels like they're not focused anymore on trying to make a specific brand of content that you don't see on television. In fact, it actually feels really, really repetitive. I have a conspiracy theory about their recommendation algorithm just pushing their own, like the shittiest, most bland shit to keep you within the product. Like what they recommend to me are things that have like multiple seasons with multiple episodes because they want to keep me on the platform, and it's actually not catered to my taste because I'll just be finished, like I'll have finished watching something made by David Fincher and it says, "Oh, you like this? You're going to really love." Nailed it. And I would I mean, I like Nicole Byer, but I just
Something
finished watching
has
like the
happened to their
Zodiac
curation.
movie.
Something has really happened to their curation. It's just not there. Like the personalization is completely gone. I don't get it.
Yeah. And this is like 100% true. I wish I could repeat it, but I just finished watching Zodiac and it recommended like a few Netflix like reality television shows, and I'm picturing David Fincher just, I don't know, like strangling a pillow or something to in reaction to that. Like why would you recommend like Is It Cake and Nailed It to me after watching Zodiac? Like I get if they showed me Donnie Darko with Jake Gyllenhaal who's in Zodiac, or even like a
Mm-hmm.
rom-com with Robert Downey Jr. or Mark Ruffalo because they were in Zodiac. I see no data points connecting what's being shown other than just they want to keep me within the platform. I'm really annoyed about that. We are going to be going more into the ad supported accounts. So I don't want to talk about that right now. I'm saving that juicy stuff. But I will say that this is a portent of things to come where they are very focused on those short term cost cutting measures and trying to become profitable again by making financial decisions that aren't thinking about the long term effects. Because if you are going to be making a streaming platform that contains mostly reality TV show, which is the bread and butter now of most of Netflix, I would say that from a cultural cachet, they have Bridgerton. They still have Stranger Things for maybe like another season or so. They obviously have Wednesday, which there was some speculation that it would go to Amazon because of
They
MGM
took their
Studios.
time renewing to season 2. They didn't announce it for like a month.
They didn't announce it for a month, and my suspicion is that whole MGM acquisition by Amazon, MGM
Yes.
Studios, obviously is involved within the production of Wednesday. I think they really don't want to repeat the whole Defenders, Daredevil, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones thing where they make this and then ultimately it goes to like another streaming service because Marvel said no playing with our
Right.
toys. Ginny and Georgia, I watched a clip of that.
Which is
I
trending
watched
number 1, isn't it? It's number 1 or something.
that just seems like I feel like that show is created to set humanity back 50 years. That's like my conspiracy. But there was so much other like trash that came out. I truly hated Inventing Anna. I couldn't finish it. Like I just stopped. It was poised to be a really interesting TV show about Anna Sorokin, this like scammer. I wanted to see like I love scams. I love watching things about scams. And it was so fucking boring. I checked out. You want to see an exercise in deliberately misunderstanding the grievances of people across different political spectrums, you should watch this brainless fucking trite piece of trash called Purple Hearts. Purple because red and blue. Get it? Like, oh my god, like imagine someone's worst
Wait, so like
Democrat and Republican fan fiction from AO3 being made
oh
into an
no,
actual
no, no,
movie.
no, no.
Yeah. Yeah, she wants universal health care. He wants to blow up Iraqis. Will they be able to find love? Tune in on Purple Hearts and find out more. Like, this is the type of shit that Netflix is making to literally be like, let's go with middle of the line and everything to appeal to as many people as possible. And I felt my soul leaving my body and touching the void. Of course, they renewed Emily in Paris because it's a great way for them to be advertising for McDonald's and Louis Vuitton. I don't know what's happening with Netflix. It just seems like it's going middle of the road. I think, Kira, you have some thoughts about it because you're intimately personal, like connection with some of the creative decisions, or I should rather say like the decision making process in Netflix is like known to you a little bit more, and I want to get your insights on that. Like, what the fuck is going on with one of the
All
most
right.
established streamers? Yeah.
Thank you for providing me the platform. Everyone take a seat. This is gonna be a ride.
Oh shit.
First of all, I do want to say, like, Netflix as the OG has a lot of my love and respect, and they've earned so much through their prestige content, right? And early on, I used to tout their experiences. Like, I was so impressed when they would do that thing of like when you log on to Netflix and they would have a little bit of nudge for you to sign up for the HD a part of their subscription by actually showing what it looked like on the left with your current subscription, what your screen looked like with a trending show. So it could be Wednesday Adams with like your current subscription, and then you would see what it looks like in HD, and it says like it would just be $1 more. So like just a little bit, like a beautiful, meaningful, just a thoughtful ad with proper context, and I loved that. Like, this is how you do experimentation, this is how you get customers, this is how you show respect to them. I used to talk about that all the time in my day job as well. Lately I'm seeing like shit features, right? I see the video previews, which Paramount, please.
Your video preview with the audio automatically turned on. What are
And
you
I swear
doing?
the volume is so high. I don't keep my volume so high, but like I feel like the volume turns up every time it's doing a video preview.
Netflix is doing the whole like I want your attention, doesn't matter if it's in a bad way. Do you remember that Fall Out Boy song? I don't care what you think as long as it's about me.
Little things like, honestly, if they were like, let's wait 10 seconds before we start the audio, no, you hover and it's within, I want to say, 5 seconds. And just like, it's very loud and thoughtless, and it feels very disrespectful to the customers that are giving you money. But I think I wanted this platform, thank you Raven, to talk about the article that just came out in the New Yorker, which is titled "How Much Netflix Can the World Absorb?" And it's a great profile by Rachel Sim, who follows the head of global television at Netflix, Bela Bajaria, who was having a great time at the Golden Globes in her super normal, non Golden Globe worthy black sari.
My
So good for you,
God.
Bella.
She looked like an auntie. I told you this. She looked like an auntie at a sangeet of someone that she doesn't really care about, like a second cousin's child. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah.
I
It's
want to see a sari that you have a hard time walking in. It must be heavy. It must be like, you know what I mean? Get in
I'm
there,
going to
girl.
say, if it's not a Sabyasachi, get the fuck out. That's all I
Yeah.
have to say.
And it's a great, I would recommend that people read this profile, because not only does it go into like Bela's day to day, but it also goes into what Netflix is thinking next. And I I was very struck with what a successful business person Bela is. Like, she seems very competent. She seems like she's on the go on private jets every 2 days, taking meetings across the world. So more
Oh,
power
fuck
to her.
you! Private jets?
I mean, she's definitely not flying commercials.
No,
It has
I'm
to be.
sorry. You're using my subscription money to fly. Okay, great. Well, thanks for bringing on the heat death of the universe faster, Bella.
So it is the part of the strategy was very interesting. There were a couple of things that really stood out to me. So Cindy Holland, who was the head of television before Bela came on in 2020, Cindy Holland was very responsible for actually bringing prestige early into Netflix. So The Crown, House of Cards, BoJack Horseman. And then this, as that leadership changed, the strategy shifted to bringing in a lot more reality television. Like around 2020 we started seeing this change of like Love is Blind and Tiger King trending, and now, Indian Matchmaker, all of these things. And of course, yes, we
Oh,
see.
she brought Indian matchmaking?
She sure
It's
did.
on site, Bella. Watch your back, Bella. Sleep with
And
one eye open, Bella.
credit where credit's due. She has brought in a lot of international content and access. So Squid Game, there's a lot of diversity with Bridgerton and Never Have I Ever. So great. But quickly, I do want to cover that the article goes into how Netflix does want to be a gourmet cheeseburger of content. So something that's commercial and premium at the same time, whatever that means. And then there's the quote about that Bela is not an intellectual, quote unquote, by an anonymous source, which should not have been in the profile. It doesn't seem like it. It's
This heifer likes reality TV shows. She dumb as a rock. I mean, that probably was translated to she's not an intellectual by the New Yorker because they don't want to use that kind of language.
My favorite quote from the piece was from CEO Ted Sarandos, said that Netflix's goal is to, quote, replace all television and be equal parts HBO and FX and AMC and Lifetime and Bravo and E and Comedy Central. What? What is happening?
So they don't want to be television, they want to be your literal TV. As in, you can scroll to different
Can I
channels.
go back to cable,
Okay.
please?
I mean, they're basically reinventing cable, except that they can bypass FCC rules. So when they say they want to be Comedy Central, they can just, I don't know, platform transphobia or other edgy 2009 shit like that, because that's where their focus seems to
I
be.
I I I felt so
I
many emotions like amazement and admiration and amusement and confusion and fear and disbelief and like
I'm just feeling amusement and confusion. I guess I'm feeling less confused and more amused, and I'm just
their product
laughing.
identity is like completely lost. Like I felt very we kept saying they're all Netflix is all about quantity over quality, which is fine. It was working for them, but reading this piece does I just don't know what's going to happen because they have no set identity. And we've talked about it in our pods before where like you have to have an identity to survive as a product in this world and have a clear answer. And I just,
Yeah,
they've taken hit after hit.
Netflix original means nothing. It doesn't mean any. It's like a neutral
Yeah.
term now. Netflix original can either mean really good, really bad, or so forgettable you don't even remember watching it. It doesn't mean anything
The
anymore. I
reputation is
feel
like
like,
completely gone too. Like for the first
yes,
time,
there is no reputation
for the first time
anymore.
in their lifespan, they lost subscribers. It was a loss for them last year. And then they announced the password crackdown, where people were like, what are you doing? And after championing no ads for so long, where their whole thing was like, we're never going to have ads, they are finally succumbing. And TBD, but what a failure of a year for them. Final thoughts. So, we're going to start with a quote from John Landgraf, the chairman of FX Networks, in a very recent interview, who said, well, declared that peak TV is on a decline. We've seen some grim notes throughout the year: HBO cancellations and removals during production for some titles, layoffs and restructuring across the board, in some cases, bringing people out of retirement. We covered this in our episode about the Bobs.
Mm-hmm.
And we are now hearing AMC network cancellations with big stars like Tatiana Maslany, and the shows being scrapped mid-shoot. I believe after 4 episodes this show was scrapped. This is such a confusing time where I think like real time expectations are changing. Real time there's like corrections in the marketplace happening, and no one really knows what they're doing or where they're going. But we know as things change, we know, right, that streaming isn't going anywhere. It's flailing, yes, but it is fighting on. It is transforming into something else. But what's next? Is it a resurgence of cable TV we're looking at? I don't know. Raven, what are your thoughts?
The concept of streaming, like you said, isn't going anywhere, but I think what streaming means is going to change. For most people, for example, within the Gen Z, Gen Alpha range, streaming doesn't mean Netflix, it means Twitch. It means being able to watch
Yes.
content creators on like YouTube Live or platforms like Twitch, just kind of vibing with their audience, playing video games and chatting about different things. And I think that that's the concept. Like the concept of streaming is going to keep evolving, but with the enhancements and developments around the tech stack behind it, it's going to be just about making streaming very accessible to anybody who wants to start a streaming service. And I just feel like we're going to again come up with the same problem as we did with cable. So we may see this push of like consolidation in a couple of years. Like I know that the first one I want to keep an eye on is how Disney works with their consolidation, because they have like too many things going on at the same time, and they may, for example, feel like it's very profitable for them to just start a Disney streaming service exclusively for Disney animation and Pixar, and then another one just for Star Wars, and another one just for Marvel. Like, I could see that happening. It is a confusing time because money is drying up. Like you said, things are being cut in the middle of production. Like, I'm just imagining people coming away, like taking the camera away as they're filming, and they're like, wait, what's going on? Like, they're literally building, like tearing down the sets and building up new ones, being like, sorry, this is gonna be another spin-off for The Walking Dead now, Tatiana. We're just putting like zombie makeup on the extras and like putting in overgrown ivy in the background. What's really interesting to me, and I really wanted to like talk about this with you, because now that we're in 2023, where people have begun to completely ignore the coronavirus, like, oh, remember that seemed a long time ago. But with the success of Top Gun Maverick, with the success of Avatar The Way of Water, with James Cameron saying that people were just yearning for their souls to be free by shoving themselves into crowded theaters and experiencing something with a community of other people who love the same content, with the same film, with the same emotional journey that he's taking us through. I think streaming is in an interesting position to just become a replacement to TV. Netflix kind of saw that. That's why they made that statement. I think we're going to see fewer movies on streaming platforms, because movies are now going to be where they actually, and by they I mean the studios and the distributors
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
producing this stuff, can make their money back in sending this to the theaters, and then using their streaming services like the library repository, where you can go check it out,
Yes.
and they can prevent piracy by saying, guys, you don't have to watch the cam rip. We're going to be putting
We
it
should point
on
out
our streaming service.
this award season in 2023, we're not seeing the movies are not any all the movies are theatrical releases. When Coda won last year best movie at the
Hmm.
Oscars, I think there was like a real time, like people were thinking, wait, does this mean everything is going to be on streaming now? Are theaters dead? But we're seeing that's not the case. And a lot
Yeah.
of this is so interesting, Raven, because now I've started to see like are these traditional services, the older services of streaming, are they the old guard now, just super ripe for, I'm sorry, Benoit Blanc, for using this word, are they ripe for disruption? Like I would love to see, I would love to see more YouTube and TikTok content. Like TikTok, I'm not a huge fan, but I'd love to see newer services that cater to more power to creators, more power to the audience.
If you have a platform like YouTube and TikTok that is driven by the content creators themselves, you naturally see that variety pop up, where the streaming services have to curate that themselves, and they're unable to do so because there's an authenticity in the organic growth of these different niche parts of TikTok and YouTube. And I don't think that streaming can compete the same way, because the level of investment is much higher, but you're also not able to react to it in real time. Things come and go within these trends, and like streaming, because it's online, because it's paying so much attention to the data, feels like they have to be reactive, and so they're not in the position of actually making an impact on culture. They're reacting to it. They're being driven by culture, and I that's the downfall. you know People
Yeah.
aren't in the same headspace as they were like 20 years ago, where people were getting the Rachel haircut because of Jennifer Aniston. It's more like, imagine giving Jennifer Aniston the cut because everyone else is doing it. I feel like that's what's flipped within streaming, because they're so like crazy data driven. But movies, on the other hand, because they're being made by studios that are looking to affect the cultural zeitgeist with their product, is better equipped to stand out now, because I think we're as a culture moving away from things that are being reactive. We want to see things make waves in culture. The pain that I felt watching those first two episodes of Velma on HBO Max was
Let's
so
save our takes. I think
excruciating.
it requires a platform, that show.
Yeah, yeah, but it's like it's a person who's clearly just, reacting to what commentary has been coming through on social media and using it verbatim as dialogue. And to me, that's just like, you are trying so desperately to appeal to the culture. You have nothing to contribute of your own. And that is the pit that streaming falls into, because they're going to make television. Television is longer. You can have 5, 10, 15 seasons. So you just have this glut of content. It's going to keep people in. I'm predicting, of course, like more cheap adult animation, but also reality, because it's inexpensive to produce and you can just do very little to create the illusion of a lot happening in front of the camera.
Yeah.
I think you and I, as not only enjoyers of content, but also because we're curious about the way things are made, I feel like a couple of things I feel like we need to keep an eye on is how the ad supported platforms, the fast platforms perform in 2023, because it's just, to me, replicating the model of cable television. So how well is that doing? I want to, of course, see the completion of the MGM acquisition by Amazon and the HBO Max and Discovery mergers, and see how that affects the streaming services themselves. And I'm very curious to see what Disney and Hulu are going to be up to over the next year. Um Netflix, I'm done caring about you. I'm not personally invested in you anymore. And I think that all the people that I know work there are also just like, just waiting, waiting it out.
Maybe it rises from the ashes like a beautiful phoenix. Maybe.
That'll get canceled in, one season. Rise of the
Oh my
Phoenix,
god.
one season only. Just
I think those are some thoughts that we had about the whole like streaming landscape, the specific properties in 2022. If you have any thoughts about it, any like insights, we'd love to hear. Any questions as well, we'd love to like dive deep into those questions. But for now, that's where we'll leave it. Next time, we are covering peeling back the glass onion, Netflix ads tier, and theatrical release strategies. So that's all for today, folks. Until next time, full screeners.
bye.